Does the world have a meaning? Contrary to what you'll find online, his philosophy of absurdity does not mean that the world is meaningless, rather, that the world is seemingly meaningless. What you'll find online is wrong. The Wikipedia page is incorrect. Camus says that I don't know if this world has a meaning that transcends it, but I know that I do not know that meaning, and it is impossible for me to know it. Camus says that weariness comes after a long and mechanical life of doing the same things over and over again. You go to work, you have your lunch, you come back home, and you repeat that pattern over and over again until you become conscious and aware that your life may not have meaning. And he says that it is inherent in the human condition to wonder whether life has a meaning. And from this awareness, you can either go back into the chain of your daily life or you develop an awakening. And that awakening results in suicide or recovery. The philosophy of absurdity is not found in the human being or the world, but the connection between the two. Camus says that it is inherent in a human being to wonder whether life has a meaning and to search for that meaning. But when he comes face to face with this world that is seemingly meaningless, this disconnect is noticed between the man and the universe. They don't fit together. A man wants meaning, and the universe does not provide him with that meaning. When a man shows up with his desires in the face of an indifferent or meaningless world, this is where absurdity is born. Camus argues that the question of suicide is the most urgent of questions. The earth revolving around the sun around the earth, an infinite or finite universe, these are futile questions to him because it does not affect lives in the same way that suicide does. He says that he has not seen people die over questions like these. However, he's seen people die because they judge life not worth living. The absurd is lucid reasoning noting its limits. He is saying that knowledge of the absurd is also knowledge of the mind's limits. Logic can only take you so far. Camus says that it is always easy to be logical, but it is impossible to be logical to the bitter end. This is true on all fronts. Emotions in many people can create a blockade in logic. Lack of knowledge can also create a blockade from critical thinking. And this, he says, can create biases, uncertainty, and assumptions. Men who die by their own hand consequently follow to its conclusion their emotional inclination. That life is not worth living because it doesn't make sense or appears to be meaningless in an objective sense. Beginning to think is beginning to be undermined. When you delve into introspection, your beliefs and values are being undermined. But it is important to go through this process of introspection, especially if you're having negative thoughts. You must go through the hurricane to get to the eye of the storm. Suicide is one of the ways that people deal or escape from this absurdity of existence. Camus admits that the recognition of a meaningless world may be true, but this is not reason enough to commit suicide. Similarly, people commit philosophical suicide. This is another way in which people escape the absurdity of reality. Camus believes that philosophical suicide and suicide are both a rejection of authenticity, and that philosophical suicide is a form of intellectual dishonesty. This to him can include believing wholeheartedly in a higher power or lack thereof. Being an atheist can also be an example of intellectual dishonesty. Both are forms of escape as well. Because absurdity is inherent in the human condition, you have a responsibility to confront this absurdity and make your own choices about how you choose to live. These comforting beliefs do not align with the harsh reality of the world, and many people may be left with emptiness and dissatisfaction. So meaning in life may be to find your own meaning in a meaningless world and to be prepared to accept the responsibility and the consequences that come from your chosen meaning. Because to Camus, not all meaning is legitimate and equal to one another. He says that everything is permitted does not mean that nothing is forbidden. He says, I see others paradoxically getting killed for the ideas or illusions that give them a meaning. What is called a reason for living is also a reason for dying. It's important to be mindful of one's beliefs and their reasons for living, because not all reasons can be beneficial and can in fact be self-destructive or futile. The third response is rejection and rebellion. Camus uses the ancient Greek tale of Sisyphus as an example of an absurd hero. Sisyphus as an example of someone who has rebelled against absurdity. Sisyphus shared the secrets of the gods and outsmarted death multiple times, and because of his actions he was condemned to the eternal struggle of rolling a boulder up a hill in the underworld, only for it to roll back down, and him having to repeat this process forever. This is a symbol of the never-ending struggle and the futility of life. Despite the apparent meaninglessness of the situation, Sisyphus finds meaning in the defiance of his acts. Even though he knows that the boulder will continue to roll back downhill and that his actions are futile, His determination to persevere becomes an act of defiance. And through this defiance, he finds his own free will and agency in a universe that seems to be indifferent or even hostile. You must embrace the absurd. Sisyphus' choice to embrace his fate provides freedom for him. This freedom lies in Sisyphus' decision to confront the absurd face to face and create his own meaning through his actions, even if those actions seem meaningless to others. Sisyphus' acceptance of his fate, rather than choosing despair or seeking false comfort, is another source of his meaning. He does not delude himself with uncertainty or false hope, but fully embraces the absurd and embraces his fate and the situation that he finds himself in. He is living authentically in the way that he chooses to do so. Sisyphus finds meaning and happiness in the process itself. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And the present moment becomes enjoyable because Sisyphus is fully engaged in it. The human condition and the meaninglessness of the world and finding your own meaning are not an easy thing to do. But because these things are inherent to the universe and to the human condition, it is your responsibility to find meaning and to choose one that matters to you and not necessarily to other people. You must face this challenge head on without hiding, because that is your purpose and your responsibility.